a usual way to start the closing remarks is to say that I would be keeping you from the drinks. I'm not saying that. I know that there are more important things going on at the moment, so I know I'm keeping you from, at least some of you, from watching the World Championship of Hockey at the moment. But for those who are not streaming it online, I can tell you that the situation currently is 0-1 for Finland. Sorry for, sorry for the US participants, but yes. So, still shortly, to trying to wrap up today's discussion, I think choosing a theme for a seminar is always a difficult task. Especially for one like this, that's a recurring seminar. So this is the 6th time already that we've had the Helsinki International Arbitration Day. Now, in order to attract audience, I think the theme should always be, if not hot, as usually marketed, at least warm, in the sense that it's a topic that's being discussed within the community at the moment. At the same time, we should have a topic that's new enough, or fresh enough to prompt discussion that's interesting, gives new perspectives, and the like. And I think that today's theme succeeded in doing that, in finding the balance of having a topic that has been discussed a lot, but bringing perhaps something new to the discussion. Because we all know that costs, and especially I think cost efficiency, is something that has been discussed for years. It's been the so-called hot topic at least for 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years. And as it appears, it still remains to be a hot topic. Of course, that topic in itself has a lot of subtopics, as we've heard today. So we can think about perhaps more technical issues like cost, advance on costs, how the institutes determine the costs, and so on. Or we can move more into the substance issues of cost allocation that we heard in the afternoon. But I think that the issue that was most interesting in combination of today's discussions was the view of the institutions and whether the institutions as such can have an effect on this issue, on the overall issue of costs. And why is this interesting? Why I think it's a new angle, perhaps, is that, as was discussed in the last panel, and we all know that the actual costs that the institutes or the institutions control, they actually are a very small part of the overall cost of arbitration. We heard some percentages from the SCC and the ICC. The same percentages for the FAI are even smaller. So we had in 2016 2.4% of the overall costs of an arbitration. I mean, the average was the administrative costs of the institution. Also, the fees of the arbitrators, they fall greatly behind the overall costs. So the party costs, the legal costs of the parties and their representatives. Those costs within the FAI were 10.8%, if I remember correctly. So 86% of the costs come from the legal representation of the parties. And then to have the question whether the institutions in some way can affect this overall cost of arbitration, I think is interesting. I think what is also clear is that there is this sort of ever-increasing role that the institutions are taking also in this respect, so answering to the concerns of the users. You can see that, for example, there was a recent Kluver arbitration block rising about, again, 10 hot topics. I think the arbitration world loves the hot topic caption, but yes, 10 hot topics for arbitration in 2017. And that blog started with an explanation on how the rules of many of these established arbitration institutions have been revised either in 2016 or will be now having new rules in 2017. And also there have been like the note on conduct of arbitrations of the ICC that has been revised and so on. So lots of this rule and guideline work that has been targeted, especially I think one of the main reasons for these revisions of rules has been to improve the cost efficiency of arbitration. So it really seems to be a driving factor also in terms of how the proceedings are governed by the institutional rules. And I actually think that they can play a rather important role in contributing to the effectiveness and thereby to the time and cost of arbitration. I think the challenge lies in finding, again, a balance with having a set of rules and guidelines that sort of lead the users and the arbitrators to conducting the proceedings in an effective way, at the same time not going to the other extreme and having so much detailed rules that it actually makes the proceedings more complicated and thereby usually more costly and time-consuming. But of course, the institutions can do only as much, since still I think the fact remains, which can be seen in where the costs come. The fact remains that the parties and their representatives are the key into really making a difference in whether the price paid for arbitration actually meets the service received. I'm now leaving totally aside the role of the arbitrators, which I think cannot be diminished. An arbitrator can, of course, with the discretion granted to him or the tribunal, have an effect also on how the parties and their representatives act. And I think the last discussion on using costs as a sanction or a reward could be one way of dealing with that. What we also, I think that in terms of the parties and the representatives, how they really use the framework and the rules given. So what the Institute can offer, how that can be used. We also learned today a good deal about the best ways of using that framework, so in terms of the practices of the institution, and I think that was also sort of important information and education for all of us. Just reading the rule book doesn't always tell you the answers. So what do we take home from today's presentations? Anyone want to answer that? No? I think that, at least for me, I think that even though arbitration is, of course, a service of justice, it is still a service, and I think that came out rather nicely today. And whatever service you're providing, you need to be sure that the price fits the quality of the service that you're providing. So the whole cost issue, it's been talked a lot, but it needs to be talked a lot because it is, in the end, something that the users will keep thinking about, talking about, and if they feel that the price is not right, then the service will not be used in the end. And I think maybe the second issue that came to me, at least, as something to take home was that perhaps costs is an issue that should even be talked more. So not only in seminars, but also, as said in the last panel, in the proceedings themselves. So we should have sort of open discussion about how this world of costs works within arbitration, how it works within a particular dispute, and what are the thoughts of the tribunal in terms of costs. That is the way to ensure that at least even if the price is high, it's not surprising, so that the users, as discussed, can predict the outcome in terms of costs. So now, before I bring this seminar into the closing, I would like all of you to join me in thanking the organizers, of course, FIA and the ICC and ICC Finland, all the panelists, speakers, and the supporting partners for their efforts in making this, I think, yet another good seminar. I think this is getting bigger and more beautiful every year, so looking forward for next year as well, which will be, so save the date, on the 24th of May 2018. Date has already been set, but please let's give our applause to the organizers and panelists. And on the same note, I also wish to thank all the participants, of course, for making the event what it is. And then to the dinner part. So as you know, dinner will be served in Scandic Park Hotel, which is, well, not right across the street, but almost. We will have, as I've understood, the security personnel by the door just to show you the way. You don't need security, but you need somebody to tell you where the hotel is. So you will find the men in lime-colored ties to show you the way, and the champagne will be waiting there at the hotel as well. So let's move rather swiftly to the hotel, and also for those who need to have a break in between, since we're a bit late on the schedule, the dinner has been postponed a bit, so we will start around 7:15. So hope to see every one of you there. Thank you.